Hey, hello, Cherie here, the host and producer of Women's Running Stories. And before we get going, I just want to acknowledge that women need pockets, especially us women who run. And that is exactly why Oiselle designed the pocket jogger tights and shorts. They have 7 pockets total, including a rear zip pocket, 2 large side pockets, and mesh pockets at the waist, so you can bring everything you need with you on every run. The fabric is soft and compressive enough, but not too compressive. And like all Oiselle products, they just look nice. And these pieces last forever. And I know firsthand because I have several pairs of the shorts and I have the tights in various lengths, and they really are just fantastic. I even wear them out in my day-to-day life when I'm not running. So check out the pocket jogger tights and shorts at oiselle.com. That is OISELLE.com. The apparel company created by women, for women, and rooted in running. Again, that's oiselle.com. You are listening to Women's Running Stories.
There's just something about it that drew me back again and again and again. And now here we are running the 20th consecutive Boston Marathon on April 15th. Hi, I'm Jen Kanyugi, and I am a mom of 3 that lives in Braintree, Massachusetts.
Yes, this episode features Jen Kanyugi, and this year she is indeed celebrating her 20th consecutive running of the Boston Marathon. And of course, her experiences and contributions to running go far beyond this annual event. And Jen is going to get into it in this episode. But before we hear more from Jen, I do want to welcome you to Women's Running Stories, the podcast where exceptional women runners share inspirational stories about their running experiences. I am Cherie Louise Turner. I am the host and producer of Women's Running Stories, and this podcast is a proud member of the Evergreen Network of Podcasts. This is one of several episodes focusing on athletes who are lining up for the 2024 Boston Marathon. And there's a special bonus with this episode. Listen all the way through the very end, past the credits. Jen is going to give her description of the Boston Marathon course. You can hear all the highlights of this historic course through the eyes of a woman who has experienced it for just shy of 2 decades. Her description will clue you in to what keeps runners coming back year after year, and what first-time runners have to look forward to. So yeah, whether you have run the Boston Marathon before, or this is your first time, or you aspire to run the Boston Marathon, or you just want to know some of what people experience out on that course, stick around to the end and listen for Jen's description. I want to mention up top here that this episode was made possible in part with help from the Black Unicorn Marathoners. I want to give a special shout out to Adrian Benton, Alexandria Williams, and Rochelle Solomon. And Rochelle has been on the podcast. She was part of the Roads to Boston series, so you can hear her story in that series. Go back and have a listen. I'll link to that in the show notes. So yes, thank you to these women and the Black Unicorn Marathoners. The Black Unicorn Marathoners is an organization that celebrates and connects Black marathoners who are or have been in the Boston Marathon. And this year, they are hosting their 10th annual Celebrate and Connect event on Marathon Weekend, Saturday, April 13th, from 2 to 7 p.m. at the Reggie Lewis Track and Athletic Center. You can learn more about that at blackunicornmarathoners.org, which of course I will also link to in the show notes. I do hope to see you there. It is a great event, and yes, I will be there to help celebrate these runners. And the very next day, I am joining my friends Julie and Lisa from the Run Farther and Faster podcast to co-host a panel at the Boston Marathon Expo. We will be on the live stage. It's Sunday, April 14th at 2 p.m. We are hosting a panel called Making a Statement, Breaking Barriers in Women's Running, and we will be in conversation with elite runners Kelly Bruno, Elisa Harvey, and Bree Bomer. Each one of these outstanding runners has broken barriers in women's running that inspires them to compete with purpose that goes beyond race day. It's going to be a great conversation, and immediately following the panel discussion on that same live stage, the Black Unicorn Marathoners will present the exceptional women athletes running as part of Team Bevins in this year's Boston Marathon. And that team does include Jen Kanyugi, so you can come and meet her there. Team Bevins is running in honor of trailblazing marathoner Marilyn Bevins, the first Black American woman to finish the marathon in under 3 hours. And that is just one of many accolades of Marilyn Bevins, who was one of the top marathoners of her day. So please come join us. There's just so much going on. It's going to be a great event. All right, now let's get into this episode. This story begins, well, at the beginning, the point when Jen Kanyugi decided to become not just a runner, but a marathoner. Before this point, the most running Jen had ever done was 20-minute bouts on the treadmill, and that wasn't exactly something she loved doing. But on one fateful day, that all changed, and Jen went all in. Here to tell her story is Jen Kanyugi.
Very, very interesting way that I got into running. I was never a runner, but I worked for this company called John Hancock that was the sponsor of the Boston Marathon. And a friend of mine invited me to this employee meeting, and she said, let's go hear what this is about. If anything, we're going to get a free lunch out of it, and let's see what it's about. They were looking for about 100 employees to run as part of the John Hancock Marathon team, employee team. And they were going to provide a nutritionist, a coach, and all kinds of support for basically anybody who had not even run before. So this sounded very interesting to me. So I tagged along with a friend and we went to this meeting. Great lunch spread, I have to say. And just as I was about to leave, the coach asked, who's never run the marathon before? And slowly I put my hand up and I looked around the room, and about 90% of the room had not run before. It's kind of a competitive thing that you have. And I looked around and I said, if they can do it, I can do it. And when I came home and I told my husband, guess what? I'm going to run the Boston Marathon. And he asked me, do you know a marathon is 26.2 miles? I said, yeah, and they have this great coach and great nutritionist. And he said, you sound like you're in some kind of a cult. And I said, I don't know, I just got really excited. So he was not a believer at first. He did the wait and see thing to see how I was going to do. So he was not as confident as I was that I was going to get this done. And basically, that's how I got started. I only intended to do just that one, just to cross off that bucket list to say that I had actually run a marathon. So that was around September, October when they were doing the recruiting. So we really had about 5 to 6 months of build up to the marathon. And we got such great support with a very famous coach, Coach Squires, who had coached Bill Rogers, and a great nutritionist. We got everything. I mean, from basically, couch to marathon training plan started. I remember my first 2 miles. I remember the first 5 miles, my first week. Remember the first long run, the 10 miles. I sat on that couch and I doubted myself. I was like, could I really do this? And slowly built up to it, and there was frequent check-ins, which was really crucial to me being able to stay on. I think if it was an individual effort, I probably would have dropped out within like the first 4 weeks. But there was a lot of support for this team, and uh, hearing everybody else and how everyone else was doing and commiserating and seeing, hey, I'm not the only one that's having the same aches and pains. This seems normal. And just coach really believing in us and knowing that this guy had actually trained a Boston Marathon winner and a New York Marathon winner, we knew like this guy knew exactly what he was doing. So I stayed on, and somehow, like I said, my friend was also in it too. So we were in it together. It wasn't like I was doing it by myself. So that encouraged me. But I never made it to my first marathon start line because I injured myself. I made a rookie mistake. I was working so much and I doubled up on the mileage and injured myself. And coach said to me, once you skip a run, you have to forget that run and don't even think about it. Just forget that mileage and continue on with the plan. So the first year, I did not make it to the start. 5 weeks before, injured an Achilles, never made it to the start, and came back strong the next year and got to the marathon. And I think I had something to prove to my husband too. So it was the fall of 2003 when I first went to that luncheon, trained all the way up to March of 2004, got injured with my Achilles, and did not make it to the start line of the 2004 Boston Marathon. Came back in that fall, trained again, and my very first Boston Marathon was April of 2005. So, yeah, did it. And I was so happy. I was like, oh my God, I've done the Boston Marathon. And the next year there was another sign up, and I found myself signing up. And my husband was asked that question. I thought you checked off your bucket list. And I said, I don't know. There's just something about it that drew me back. So at the beginning, there really was never a plan. It was, like I said, to prove to myself, to check off a bucket list. And then I believe the second year, my friend was going to do it again. So it was kind of a camaraderie thing. And then the third year, I believe they added like a charity component to it. I think it was Horizons for Homeless Children that was involved. And so we visited the place, and I kind of got attached to this idea of fundraising for Horizons for Homeless Children. So then it became running for a cause. And then I got really caught up in it. And the next year, I think it was the Ron Burton Training Village, the Boys and Girls. And then I got pregnant. And I was like, I got cleared by my gynecologist. And I went, well, since we're training, might as well do it. So then ran with my first kid. And then there was another charity. So I don't believe there was ever a plan to do consecutive Bostons, but when the pregnancy came about and I got through it and I was fine, the next child came along, ran again with my second child. And then that one was pretty scary because when I was pregnant with my daughter Maya was the year of the bombing. And that was kind of it, it really did a number on me because my husband really hadn't come out to watch me a lot, but that was the year that he was at the finish line with my 3-year-old son. And I was stopped about a half mile from the finish. And all I want to do at that moment was just to find them, to see them, but they wouldn't let us go anywhere. And they weren't really giving us much information, so we didn't know. So the rumor mill starts going. Oh, there was a bomb in the stands, which is where my husband and son were supposed to be. And just, I, I can't even explain to you what that was like. It was horrible. And then to find out later what happened, I got so many messages that day. I felt the love from so many people who had been following me, but to know that people died that day who just came to watch us run, was horrific. And then to tell him that I was going to run the next year, he thought I was just this crazy person. But I said, we have to take back the finish line. We can't let these people win. And I think maybe after the bombing was when it really started to get to the consecutive thing. I found a charity that really that I bonded with, because one of the people that was killed in the bombing was Crystal Campbell. And Crystal Campbell went to the same college that I went to, UMass Boston. And so they had started this scholarship in her name. And so then I started to fundraise in honor of Crystal Campbell. And I ran with them for 8 years. I mean, it doesn't even feel like 8 years. It feels like just the other day and then now here we are at 20. Isn't that crazy?
Easter's in full bloom at Whole Foods Market with great deals on spiral cut bone-in ham and leg of lamb, both crowd pleasers. Round out your spread with quiche, deviled eggs, and delicious catering platters from Prepared Foods. Oh, and remember to pick up a Whole Foods Market bunny cake from the bakery. Strapped for time? They cater too, with delicious options available without the effort. Find hundreds of Easter deals and delights now at Whole Foods Market.
So this year I'm running for Camp Shriver. And Camp Shriver is a camp. The model of Camp Shriver is actually used around the world. It's an inclusive day camp, a summer camp used for kids, able kids and disabled kids, so they can play together, so they can learn together. And this is also tied to UMass as well. And you get really attached to a cause, and I'm so dedicated to raising money for Camp Shriver and letting people know about their mission. So to run for a cause is to really pay it forward. It's something that I'm almost shining a light, like letting people know about Camp Shriver through my fundraising and my running Boston. People who would never otherwise know about Camp Shriver, right? One of the good things about most of the people that run for the charities is you're trying to give a face and a name and a voice to a lot of these great causes. So I take it as an honor that I was given this bib, given this honor to run on their behalf. So I want everybody to know about it. I want everybody to see what great work is being done. So yeah, that's what kind of helps me really on those days when I'm really doubting myself and like wondering, do I really still want to do this? That's what keeps me going. That's what gets you out on those cold mornings. That's what that's what gets you out there on those long runs, just knowing that, yeah, like running for a reason.
Jen continues to find motivation and purpose for running the Boston Marathon through raising money for exceptional organizations. But Jen's running extends beyond one annual event. She runs throughout the year and with running groups that continue to fuel her joy in the sport. And these groups don't just inspire her running.
So, one of the groups that I really got involved with is called Black Girls Run. And I mean, I've run with a lot of different running groups. Like I said, I ran with the employee running group. And then through running different races, I saw this group of really happy girls cheering everybody on. And I walked over and they all had gear that said Black Girls Run. And I asked them, where do you guys run? And they were like, we're everywhere. You should join us. Very welcoming group. And their mission is to really to get people up and running, moving. And I was like, wow, I loved their energy so much and joined them. We do lots of community events, a lot of races, a lot of, couch to 5Ks, a lot of community involvement, which I loved. So I'm very involved with them. Another group that I'm really involved with is called Girls on the Run. And this is a group that really, my daughter Maya is in fourth grade. She started doing this in third grade. I believe the range is third to fifth grade girls, around the time when girls start to lose confidence. This is a wonderful organization that helps girls, empower them through different tasks and programs and fun things to do. And at the end of this 10-week program, they get to run their first 5K. So I've been a volunteer coach with Girls on the Run, and I absolutely love it. So my daughter's doing her third round of 10-week session. She's going to be doing her third 5K and loves it. So those are two organizations that I've been heavily involved with. And I really involve my kids a lot. They tag along with me to just about everything. They've been to pretty much every single Black Girls Run event that I've been to. The BAA puts on, the Boston Athletic Association will put on a lot of kids' running series and activities. We do summer track too. I volunteer for summer track as well in my town. So they always tag along. And I think they maybe from the enthusiasm of mom, they're also picking it up as well. Not just Maya, but the boys as well. And I love to see them also get involved because they also want to do it. And I don't think it's just because mom's doing it, but because they enjoy it as well.
Jen's children are becoming runners themselves, and her husband? Well, very, very long gone are the days when he was waiting to see if she was going to follow through on running a marathon.
Yes, he has actually become my biggest cheerleader through all this. He has tagged along with me, especially before the kids came. I did other marathons. He tagged along with me to Chicago, to New York, so he's tagged along and he really will meet me out on certain parts of the routes and at the finish line. And he sees now I was serious about it.
Jen has so many years of running to look back on now. And with that, she's had time to reflect on what's made this journey so special to her.
Yes. So So for me, it's really weird. The cherished moments really come from the training and from the bonding and from the people that you meet along the way and from the people that support you. Because really, the race day is like a culmination of a lot of effort from not just yourself, but from your whole village, right? The fundraising, that doesn't happen by itself. The babysitting, that doesn't happen by itself. The people that are taking care of other things so that you're able to do that. My husband, my family, my friends, my coworkers, my coach, my running team, my running friends. So to me, the cherished moments are when you have that charity lunch the weekend before, or when you have like the Black Unicorn marathoners that are there just acknowledging the people that are in town for the weekend, just being in communion with other people, the girls on the run, the Black Girls Run, just being with these people the weekend before, picking up your bib and just knowing Monday is going to be race day, but it took all these people to get you to the start line. There's just that the night before, you're all jittery and nervous and just this whole anticipation of the race. But once that's all done, you're just so thankful. Everything just came together and you just feel so blessed to be able to share it with so many people, right?
And given the great feelings that this sport and this event bring to Jen's life, the final question is, what do her future plans look like?
I mean, 20 sounds like a really nice round number, but in my head, I just know next year when the bibs come out again, I'll be asking myself, do I want to do it? Do I not want to do it? But I know what the answer is going to be.
And that does bring us to the end of Jen Kanyugi's running story on the podcast. I want to thank Jen so much for coming on the podcast and sharing her story. Thank you, Jen, and I hope your 20th experience on the Boston course is absolutely magical. I also want to wish Jen the very best on all that comes next for her. Please look to the show notes for how you can keep up with Jen, and I will also include a link to her fundraising page. In the show notes, you'll also find links to the events I mentioned up top, as well as how you can keep up with women's running stories on social media. I'm keeping this intro really short so we can get into Jen's course description, which is fantastic. So I'm going to give a quick sign off. I am Cherie Louise Turner. I am the host and producer of Women's Running Stories. Thank you for listening. I do wish you healthy, joyful strides forward until next Friday when I will be back with a new episode of the podcast. And here to close us out, please enjoy Jen Kanyugi's description of the Boston Marathon course. Here, once again, is Jen Kanyugi.
The start is in Hopkinton, and as you go down, it's a downhill. The minute you leave the start line, it trends down. And there's a house on the very right. I believe it's a mile in. And the guy every year comes out and he plays the Rocky theme. Every year I look forward, honestly, even in the rain, whatever, he will play that song. And that's something I look forward to right there. And then as you get to Wellesley, everybody knows about Wellesley College and that scream tunnel. It's so loud. Honestly, it sounds like a freight train. All those girls screaming and yelling, and they've got these amazing signs for everybody. People probably do their fastest split there because you just have to experience it to know what it's like. Your heart just races. And then Right after that was a spot that my family used to meet me, just at the Wellesley Green before you get to the town of Wellesley, the half. And then mile 15. Right now, we're being trained by Coach Rick Murr, who's with the Marathon Coalition. He's always at mile 15 on the left. That is just something I look forward to seeing, just seeing Coach Rick there, knowing that I'm going to get to the part that everybody dreads, which is the Newton Hills. Before you get to the Newton Hills, there's this steep downhill, and then you get to the overpass, and that is really my nemesis. That overpass and the wind coming across that overpass, I always have to take everything in and remember all my training that, Jen, you've done this before. You can get through this part. And once you turn and go to the Newton Hills, there's a lot of support on the hills. All the charities are usually up by the Newton Hills, and lots of college kids from Boston College are right there on the hills. And if you write your name, sometimes I get delirious and I hear Jen, and I'm looking around. I think I know people, but it's because you've got your name on your singlet. And people just, all these people that come out and they're there all day, especially for the back of the packers like us, just cheering you on. It's just an amazing thing. And then I have my niece and my nephew who wait for me in Brookline. And then after you see that sit-go sign with 1 mile to go, you know you're almost home, right? Right in Hereford, left on Boylston, and there you are. You see that finish line. Ah, it never gets old. And I sometimes I tell myself I'm not going to cry this time, right? And then it's like I'm about 100 feet. You should see me. My hands are even up now. You're like 100 feet. You can see the finish line and you've got this big, huge smile. And it just, like, the waterworks just start every time without fail, every time. You're like, I did it. I did it. You did it. Nothing like it. Nothing like it.
Women's running. Women's running stories.
My name is Cindy Burnett, and each week I interview at least 2 traditionally published authors on my podcast, Thoughts from a Page. We talk spoiler-free about their books, so you can listen whether you have read the book or not. And then we delve into things that you most likely won't hear about anywhere else. The importance of the cover design, why they included various aspects of the story, personal details about both the books and the authors' lives, and so much more. You can find the podcast on every major platform and learn more about it on my website, thoughtsfromapage.com. Thanks so much for checking it out.